Cloud. Okay.
That was great to chat about for sure. Hi, Monica. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us. I'm so excited to talk about this. You guys know, anyone that's known me for long enough knows one of my favorite topics is specifically talking about skin oils. Like, I love it. I could talk about it. If I could give, when you see that, they're like, if you could talk about one thing for 30 minutes with no preparation, what would it be? And this is definitely on that list for me. I just love the science behind it, but I'm going to work real hard to not go like too crazy science nerd in this, because I like getting in depth. I love it. So, Kel, do you want to pin it? Should we pin it to speaker, or should we just pin it to me? Let's pin it to speaker. But so I'll have everyone mute their stuff, but if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself. If you have a question, put it in the chat. I do have my notes to keep me like from swinging off on tangents left and right. But skin oils are amazing. They're a totally essential skincare ingredient, and they're also really, really super misunderstood. There's a lot of myths around oils and skincare, and really oils in the skin. And that's one of the reasons why I love teaching about it, because for me personally, I noticed one of the most dramatic changes in my skin, the condition of my skin, in every way, when I really started embracing integrating oils into my skincare routine. That is the thing that literally, in my opinion, made such a dramatic difference in my skin overall. One thing that I have found, as I've been an esthetician for like a decade, and I've been in the beauty industry for 2 decades, there's a lot of people who think they have oily skin or combination skin, and they don't. Our skin is super sophisticated, and a lot of the issues with our skin being too dry or too oily actually have to do with what we are doing in our skin or not doing in our skincare routine. And it's our skin just sitting, fighting to try and figure its life out. Like, it's legit just trying to like figure out how much oil to produce or to not produce. And it's trying to get back to a pH, and it's just trying to get to a super happy place. So there are 2 different main categories when we hear about oils in skincare. We have the seed, nut, and kernel oils and essential oils, and they are very, very different. So who can tell me some things that are maybe like a seed or a nut or like a kernel oil? Anything come to mind?
Almond oil.
Coconut oil.
Yep. Yep. Riley says like teenagers, our skin can be real confused as adults too. Anyone else have any other oils that you feel like is in that category?
Pomifera, One Drop Wonder.
Pomifera, Pomifera, One Drop Wonder for sure.
Sunflower.
Yes, one of my favorites, sunflower seed oil.
Is rosehip?
Yes, rosehip, and that is one too I'll talk about, because it's rosehip seed oil.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yep, we're gonna talk about that for sure. Apricot seed oil, avocado oil, even olive oil is, it's when it's actually like the seed, the nut, or the kernels are actually pressed, and the oil in there is expressed from that. And we're going to get into it, but they're like super nutrient dense. Yes, marula. Yeah. And they are, think of it more of like, because there are typically a lot of oils that you can eat too, like it's a foodstuffs type oil, versus something like an essential oil. An essential oil they're really like, and people get confused when they say oil, like they're pretty gnarly chemical compounds. And there are a ton of them, and really they're plant essences that are extracted in a lot of different ways. Yeah, Randy, hazelnut is another seed oil. So essential oils you can toss out some things that you think are like an essential oil. They're steam distilled. Sometimes they use like an alcohol resin to extract them. But you have things like lavender and chamomile and palmarosa and rose, like the difference between rose and rosehip seed. Rose is an essential oil. Tea tree is an essential oil. And they generally need to be mixed in the base of a carrier oil, like those nut and seed oils. And they're really very, very different in their chemical composition and what they do and how they benefit the skin. And there's a lot of misinformation that you could just slather your skin in all these essential oils and nothing else and everything's going to be great. And it really doesn't work like that, because you can do a lot of damage with them too. Yes, like geranium. Geranium is an essential oil and they're amazing, but they're not like, when I think of like a facial oil, I'm really talking about those seed, nut, and kernel oils that an essential oil could potentially be put in. And there's really a lot of confusion about the difference between the two. And I always, when I talk about this, like to talk about the differences, because I love essentials. And they're really, like I said, plant essences. They can come from the leaves, they can come from the flowers, and all the other parts of the plants. And they are very different than those other oils. So oils have different properties. And some of those properties are, which is why they're great for all skin types. This is what I want to say to start this off. Any skin type and pretty much any skin concern can find its like happy oil that will help it. So I was a teenager in the 90s, and that was like the era of everything needs to be oil free. If you put oil in your face, it's going to be terrible for you. Like, don't use oils, oil free, oil free, oil free. And it was like, hey, let's use all these toners and super astringent things and strip our skin of all the oil because oil is bad. And it does, like, it was a hard mentality to break. And that's, you know, who's hurt like the sea breeze, like crazy town. Yeah. That's like all the crazy things that the Noxzema pads are like, what are they? Like the Clearasil stuff, like where you just like, let's remove every bit of everything from my skin, good or bad, and say a prayer. Yeah, it was just burning. It's like, oh, it feels so good. It's how it's supposed to feel. It burns. And there are like every skin type can find its like happy oil, and there's a lot of great oils out there that really do work for all skin types. And that's one of the things that I just sidebar, like really do love about the Limelife skincare is that we have so many products that really are appropriate for all skin types, because and I'll get into it, it's in that happy place of like the oils that I really love for skin. So oils have a lot of different properties. They can be more astringent or oil managing versus moisturizing, and really like rich and like extra emollient. So when we talk about the word moisturize, we're actually talking about a product that impacts the oil content of our skin. And that's like with skincare generally, there's so much confusion around what is hydrating and what is moisturizing. And I know we've talked about this, but again, like hydration, we talk about water content and things. And moisturizing, we talk about the oil content. And that's always an important distinction when we think about it, because oils can operate on that range between stuff that's more like oil managing and astringent versus something that maybe is really rich and moisturizing, and then can get to the point where it is too much topically for like the face. When we start talking about things like coconut oil, that stuff is so dense that it's too much in that, like on that scale for the face. Oils are super anti-inflammatory. They can be really antioxidant. They can be antimicrobial and antibacterial. So when we think like, what's one skin type where if I'm like, everyone can use a skin oil, what's one skin type or concern where alarms start going off and you question that? And you might think I'm a crazy person. A lot of people are like,
Rosacea?
That could, yeah, that's a skin
oil
concern.
like makes it worse, but
Or like oily skin and acneic skin. A lot of people, if they feel like they have oilier skin or combination skin, you say like skin oil, they start freaking out, you know? But when you think like with rosacea, again, like rosacea is something where there can be other things that go along with it. You know, you have a lot of inflammation, you can deal with things that are like seem like acne, or there can be acne in conjunction with that, and oiliness. And so when you think about what I said around all of these different properties, well, if someone has maybe oily or acneic skin, but you can have an oil that's more astringent and an oil that's anti-inflammatory, and an oil that's antibacterial, like those are all things that are great for oily and acneic skin. And so really it's really hard because you can't always just go off the shelf and grab something and be like, oils for everybody. It really does need to be the right thing based on your skin type and your skin concern. So a couple of the things that make skin oils so amazing to integrate into a skincare routine. And Kelly, let me know if we have anyone pop back into the waiting room, because we had some people fall off. But oils, like when I'm talking about oils, I'm talking about those seed nut oils. They're super dense in vitamins and minerals and nutrients. And why it can be really powerful to put them on topically is when we eat stuff and we consume stuff, our skin gets stuff last generally, but also our body metabolizes those things and our organs like break them down. And so they really, you can eat stuff that's like rich in omegas, but we actually break it down to the point when we eat it that it doesn't get to the skin the same way as it does when we apply it topically. And so that's why topical application makes a really, really big difference for things. And oils help those nutrients penetrate deeper into our skin, because our skin has its own oil barrier. And basic science chemistry stuff is like water content likes water content stuff, and oil content likes oil content stuff, you know? And that really comes down to, and I've done videos on this in the past, is the polarity of it. It's like magnets. And so because the natural barrier on our face is oil-based and has the same polarity as like the oils in skincare, it will actually absorb deeper into the skin. And there's a lot of nutrients that are oil soluble and have to be in an oil for it to really get into our skin. So they're really phenomenal because they really help some of those nutrients get into those deeper layers of the skin, because that's what our skin's kind of made out of, you know? And when we start using appropriate levels of oil, when we find the right stuff, that moisture barrier becomes super reinforced. So when I first started chatting, I talked about how, you know, our skin gets really out of whack, and our oil production can be all crazy. I used to have the oiliest, crazy shiny forehead on the planet. Like right through here was crazy town oil slick all the time. I had large pores, I would get blackheads through here, and I would get a ton of congestion through my chin. So like my T-zone, you know, the T on our face, was like not happy. And I was like, oh, I just have combination skin. And no, I'm not going to use the skin oil, because I've been told my whole life, even though I'm a beauty professional, that like oil is bad. Like I hate that. And even oily skin needs moisturizer. You know, it needs something that will help give it hydration and that water content and potentially that oil content, because oilier skin actually, like the oils that build up on the face sometimes are a combination that's not always like awesome stuff. And it can create like a microbiome that gets really wonky, and that's what can cause a lot of skin issues. So when I started integrating in the due date into my skincare routine, you know, there was like a couple weeks where my skin was a little extra oily, and then my skin started being like, oh, I don't need to be cranking out all this extra oil because I'm actually getting it on the skin. So what was going on with my face basically was everything I was doing was stripping my moisture barrier and all that oil off my face. So my skin got into this mode of feeling like it had to just be producing it all the time because its main job is protection, right? So it was sitting there being like, I got to be in protection mode all the time because it's getting constantly stripped. So I need to be producing it all the time. When I started actually utilizing a facial oil into my routine consistently, my skin like chilled out and it stopped doing that. And I got to the point where I was like, I didn't know this was what my face was supposed to be like. And this is like as a beauty professional, like I'm literally saying this as a beauty professional, like that was my personal experience. And our skin really is so super sophisticated with how it wants to heal and repair and keep stuff out, you know, and that those oil components are such an important part of that. And when we start giving our skin what it wants and needs, it stops kind of freaking out and overproducing. But you know, in drier skin as we age, I'm going to scoot back just a little bit, as we age, our oil production lessens. And when we go through menopause, our oil production lessens. And so integrating in that as well makes such a huge difference because we can apply topically those things that we lose naturally. So question, we're going to talk about like our skin barrier and those oils really quick. When I talked about protection is one of the main functions. Can anyone tell me another function when we were talking about like hydration and moisturization? What's another reason why we need awesome oils on our skin to help with the barrier? What's another thing our skin barrier does? It keeps stuff out, but what else does it do?
You lose moisture. Does it evaporate? What does it do?
Yep, it's called transepidermal water loss. So our barrier for our skin and those oils and stuff, they keep the bad stuff out, but they're also there to keep the good stuff in. Like that's like, it's literally like it wants to keep the bad things out and keep that water content in and really keep it from essentially like evaporating out. Keep it, keeping
lipid barrier.
Yeah. And so when we are using appropriate oils for in our skincare, it really helps actually make our skin more hydrated and helps it stay hydrated. It helps when all the other skincare products that we're using to add that water content, you know, that hydration, it helps that work better because it actually helps keep it from like evaporating out, and it will help it again, like penetrate more deeply. So that's a super important reason why finding the right skincare oils make a difference, because it actually helps like those functions of the skin. It just helps it do it better, and it helps it find balance. So balancing oil production, like I said, is such an important part of all of this, and having a solid routine that helps our skin get to that place where it's like functioning at its like most appropriate and ideal level. So like you said, the lipid barrier. Lipids are those like fats and essential fatty acids. So who's heard of an essential fatty acid? Who's heard of omegas? Like omega-3, omega-6? What things like come to mind when you hear like omega-3 or omega-6? Does anything like pop into your head when you hear that?
I just think of my dad's vitamins and like fish oil and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's one of the things that pops into my head are those like fish oils because they're super high in omegas. Mm-hmm. And omegas are essentially their building blocks in skin cells, and they actually strengthen our cells in a lot of ways. So they're super important to eat, you know, and you can take them in vitamins and all this stuff. But like I said, our body actually will straight up like break stuff down, and it doesn't get into our skin. And one of the things that and when we get a little sciencey talking about skin oils is the omega composition in the oils matter. and also the essential fatty acids. So the omega-3, 6, and 9 are 3 different essential fatty acids. And there's like a ton of essential fatty acids. And you can have like saturated fat and unsaturated fat and polyunsaturated fats. You know, it's like really, I love studying about it. Most people don't care about learning about it. But those types of things actually make a big difference in your skincare. And I remember like right after I started at some point, I did a video about like, or a live, like, don't just go to the cooking aisle and grab an oil and put it on your face. Like, it's not the same. It's not the same thing. Even sunflower seed oil. Sunflower seed oil is one of my most favorite skincare oils. It's super rich in omegas. It's super nutrient dense. It's great for all skin types. But the sunflower seed oil that you cook with is not the sunflower seed oil that you want to put on your face. They're different because the essential fatty acid content is different. They actually alter it so it's better for cooking.
So what is your skin? Is it more like comedogenic or like?
Yeah, so basically the cooking one is more comedogenic, so it can have like a higher smoke point basically. Yeah. And when people go and buy like coconut oil in the cooking aisle and they slather it all over themselves and they're like, yay, coconut oil is supposed to be great. First of all, please don't do that. Super comedogenic. But even when you see coconut oil and coconut oil derivatives and things, a lot of times in a skincare product, they have altered the essential fatty acid composition of it to make it more appropriate for the skin. Because something like a coconut oil is like way more saturated and the molecule size is way bigger and it clogs our pores. And when you're using something like that as a barrier, again, remember we talked about like getting our skin, our oil production out of whack? When we are stripping our skin overproduces oil, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, it's getting stripped. I need to do my job better. But what happens if we slather our face in coconut oil that's super dense and too heavy for the face? What is our oil production going to do in that situation?
It's not going to work.
It's going to be like, nope, there is so much oil on this face. It is so much. I'm going to stop. And one of the number one things that happens to people when they just use straight up coconut oil on their face, if they're like, oh, but my pores don't get clogged. I'm like, yeah, because you're not like a teenager maybe, but what you're doing is you're actually long-term drying your skin out because you're putting something so dense and so heavy on the face that your skin's just like, I'm not going to produce stuff. So long-term, you're actually drying skin out. And people, when they come off of using coconut oil on their face, it can be a process because the skin will feel so dry. And that's why people get like hooked on it. They're like, but my skin feels so dry when I'm not using it. And I'm like, that's because you just shut the faucet off basically in your oil production by using that. And people are like, well, but my skin's just so dry when I don't use it. I'm like, yeah, because you dried it out from using it. And that's if you know you and so and let me know if anyone has any questions around that, because again, oils are great, but it's got to be the right oils, and those essential fatty acid components are really important because our skin functions at a much higher level. It fights inflammation, and our barrier function is extra super happy basically when we're using kind of that right profile of those. And that's why like all these oils are different. That's why when you pull up, like you could search comedogenic ratings of oils. So does everyone here know what comedogenic means? I said it, before I was like a beauty professional, I said it like, I could not say that word right. I said it so wrong for so long. Comedogenic means clogs pores. And it's on a scale of essentially 0 to 5, how pore clogging something is. And 0 means it is non-comedogenic. It does not clog your pores. 5 is like, please don't put that on your face. Like you basically rub beef fat on your face. Don't do that, please. You know, coconut oil is a 4 on that scale. And so you see the difference, like, and it's literally like the molecule size. It's just too big, you know, like it can't penetrate. It sits superficially. And that's what happens when something cannot penetrate the skin, it just sits there. That's the type of stuff that's like jacking up your oil production, basically. It just can't do it. And side note, and this is an interesting fact that I love sharing that's very sciencey, but one of the reasons coconut oil is so bad too, it has a super unique carbon bond structure that actually the carbon bonds literally form, it's like brick laid carbon bonds. So it's not only like a larger molecular size, but really how the structure is, it's like so dense on the skin. And even for like the body, like, yeah, put it on your body. You can, you know, but just keep it off the face because there are good benefits. Like it's super antibacterial, actually. It's a really great antibacterial, anti-inflammatory oil. Just please don't put it on your face. You know, another thing that happens when we're using something that has that higher comedogenic rating is that's when you can get breakouts. That's when your pores can get bigger because they're getting more clogged. And so you're getting a buildup in your pores, but you can also get milia. So who here knows what milia is? And I have some dots on my forehead because I just like went to town getting some milia on off myself.
They're like little tiny like grains of sand almost, right? Or like,
so basically it's when you get a clogged pore, and they call them like a comedo. And I'll talk about that, Chrissy. That's a great question. That gets like hard. It's like a bead. And I've had people think like I use a scrub and bits of the scrub get stuck in my skin. And that's not what's happening. When you're using products that are too comedogenic for your skin, you get these plugs in your pores, and it's like a little bead under there. And some people are much more prone to milia. I'm really, really super prone to milia. And I have to be really careful. And I had some stuff sent to me and I was trying some things and I started getting milia like crazy. And I'm like, why do I stray from the path? Why do I stray from the path of what I know works for me? But the eye area in particular, the skin is so thin around our eyes. Like I will get milia through here and out here. But have you ever seen images of people that actually have a lot of bumps around their eyelids and under their eye, even through here, where we get dark circles and that skin is so thin? It looks like raised white spots essentially, but it's not inflamed. And I have seen some crazy milia on the eye area, specifically from people using oils and products that have those types of oils in them. Because oils are in like moisturizers, you know, like there will be water, there'll be oil, there'll be things like that too, not just like an actual straight up skin oil. But they are putting it on their eye area in that thin skin that's way too heavy, and they get crazy milia, and that actually have to be extracted by a dermatologist. So it is really important to really be using products and oils that are appropriate for your skin type, something that you can tolerate, but also like the eye area is so different. It's so different. The skin is so thin, and people will go crazy slathering all sorts of things like coconut oil in their face, and they end up with like literally like milia all over the place, and it's crazy. So but when you're using something that is rich particularly in omega-3 and 6, it will smooth the skin. So it has the opposite effect. And they're polysaturated essential fatty acids, so they're small, basically. That's all like they're not comedogenic, they're great. Our skin loves them.
that word you said,
polyunsaturated essential fatty acids. PUFAs.
What?
PUFAs.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
PUFAs. Your skin loves PUFAs.
Stick with the PUFAs.
But you'll see that a lot. So like One Drop Wonder in particular is like an omega-6 powerhouse. One Drop Wonder is also just a pure pressed seed oil from Maclura pomifera. There's no essential, and that's one of the things too. There's no essential oils in it, nothing else. It's one ingredient. It's a pure pressed seed oil, super rich in omega-6. And that's one of the reasons why it's such a powerful healing product. And it has all of these other things with that chemical profile and all that that make it really astounding and unique, but it's super rich in omega-6. So it really does strengthen on a cellular level. It makes, when you're using products that have that in there, it actually makes your cells stronger. Our skin likes that. It's smoothing. Omegas actually have a bit of UV protection in them, and they can help protect us. It's not the same as sunscreen, and that is a disclaimer I always say, because I know people that are like, oh, this oil is UV protective, it's like sunscreen. I'm like, no, it's not. But it does actually help protect to some extent from UV radiation and photo damage. And oils that are rich in those are going to be the most effective at helping prevent and help with like those signs of aging and wrinkles and those types of things. Now, sunflower seed oil is one that's super rich in those. Safflower seed oil is super rich in those. Rose hip, superstar rose hip, love that to death. One of my favorites, super rich in those. Evening primrose, apricot is amazing, but the other omega is the omega-9, so oleic acid. And oleic is another one that's amazing, and marula is really rich in that. But the thing with oleic acid is a bit more of a rich oil. And so for anybody that battles, so I'll get to that in a second, Kelly, but so something that has omega-9 and has more oleic acid in it is going to be really great for someone that does have more truly dry skin, because it is going to be rich, but products that maybe have a lot of that in there could be a little bit too much for someone that's truly oily or potentially does fight acne. And that's why something like a marula is amazing, because it's an omega and it is more rich and it is more moisturizing. It's great. And what, Kelly, so milia, I wouldn't say something like a One Drop Wonder could make milia go away by itself, because everyone's skin is different. And there are things that we can do to manage it and prevent it, but it just depends on how bad it is and how deep it is. Like for me, I'm really prone to milia, but they pop out of my skin really easily. But some people, milia just gets in deeper, and you can get like clusters of milia, and that they have to be professionally extracted. And that's when I tell people, like, get on something that's like a true retinol to start if they really have a serious like milia problem. And that's like, it's like a whole other thing. But again, skin's so subjective, you know, and it gets kind of crazy. But so does anyone here, oh, was there another question? Yes, so that's what those white bumps are. And then Christy, that's a great question. So stress, when we get stressed, the reason it impacts our skin is stress increases specific hormones in our body, stuff like cortisol. And we actually have like, and that increases inflammation in our entire body and even in our skin. Like we can tell a lot that's going on, like systemically, in what's reading on our skin. And stress really does, because anything that impacts our hormones impacts our skin. Literally, that's why like men's and one of the main differences between men's skin and women's skin, and so many people are like, why is there men's skincare? And I'm like, well, typically men's skin is actually different than women's skin. It's like 20% thicker than women's skin. And they have different hormones, and the hormone androgen that is more prevalent in men is the hormone that spikes acne. And so, and that's why our skin changes so much when kids hit puberty, and then when we go through menopause, and when we're pregnant, because of these hormone fluctuations. And so hormones have such a major impact on our body overall, but it really impacts our skin. And so when we have stress reactions in our skin, it can change how much oil our skin's producing. It can kick up the oil production in our skin, and it definitely kicks up inflammation. So skin oils can be awesome when you're using something that is antibacterial and fights inflammation and can be really soothing on the skin. It can be a really great product when we get more stressed out. And Kelly, who did I see? Something like Palmarosa? Palmarosa is an essential oil.
Oh, so would it be appropriate when your skin gets more inflammation to just, for example, bounce between the Dream Clean and Quench Cleanse, for example? Or are you talking about skin therapy versus Sotox, or what? Do you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, let's start chatting routine. That's a great transition. So really, again, it depends on the individual person's, like, we start with the skin type always. Like, what's your skin type? That's where we always start. And then we integrate in, like, what are your skin concerns? And then we find that happy place with like a skincare routine. So like my skin type is kind of normal, but it can go combination pretty easily, like normal to maybe combination. I'm at a place where I'm battling aging stuff and I still can get breakouts, you know? So I'm like the teen skin stuff and starting to get more mature, you know, it's like a lot of those things. So I actually do a double cleanse with Dream Clean first, because I want to fight breakouts and I want to manage like hyperpigmentation from the breakouts that I've had. And Dream Clean's really antibacterial. And then I follow up with a Quench Cleanse because it is more moisturizing. It does have more oil. It is that creamy cleanser to give me that combination of like a hydration boost and a moisture boost when I work into my skincare routine. Now, we all know and love this baby here, the Midnight Oil Cleanser. Oils are such an effective cleanser because remember when I said like oils like oils? Well, when we want to remove oil from the skin and maybe like the debris and the pollution and all that stuff, that your skin's keeping it out. So where is it all trapped? In the oils, right? It's all commingled and all that stuff with like then sweat and all that other stuff too. But oils are a really effective cleanser for pretty much all skin types, because oilier skin will benefit from an oil cleanser because it's going to do a good job of removing oil without stripping the skin too much. Because again, like I said, we have all those problems when we do stuff that's too much and starts totally stripping the skin. And a lot of people, yeah, it's like a magnet. And like people categorize themselves as like acneic. Like breakouts are not acne. Acne is an actual like medical condition. You know, acne is like different than like, oh, I have breakouts, I get pimples. Like acne is different. And oily skin like benefits from oil. It helps pull the oil and all the gunk and all that bad stuff out in a way that is balancing. But dry skin benefits from an oil cleanser too, because it's helping effectively cleanse the skin and impart more of that moisture in a way where it's not going to be, again, damaging and stripping. And oils are so crazy good at removing makeup and all sorts of things. They're really effective cleansers that can be integrated at any point in a cleansing routine. Like some people use one product, some people, I use multiple products. And for me, like I really love recommending an oil cleanser for a lot of people because they're just so universal again and not drying or stripping.
So those of you that use the Midnight Oil, I just started using it. Do you cleanse with something else after it typically?
I do the opposite. Now I'm trying to think. I think I do Dream Clean and then Midnight Oil in the evening.
Again, it can be so versatile. It can be really, really versatile. Midnight Oil can absolutely be used as a standalone cleanser. It can absolutely be used as a standalone cleanser. It just, again, it depends on like the needs of the skin and any additional like things that we're trying to treat.
So if you use something after that, it's not going to erase the effects of the oil?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
It just depends on like what you want it to do. You know, that's the thing. Like there are people that are going to be using an oil cleanser to remove dirt and oil and makeup and all sorts of other stuff. And then they want to use another cleanser to maybe do more of like a deep clean. But when you have that oil, like from this, it will also help any additional cleansers you use not be too drying and stripping on your skin.
Gotcha. Okay.
It just depends on what you're going for. Janie, do you have something you wanted to
I was just going to say, I only use the midnight. At night, I've simplified my evening routine by using the midnight oil, where I cleanse my makeup off first with usually a Norwex cloth or whatever. But then I use the midnight oil as my cleanser really, and then the midnight oil serum, and that's my moisturizer. It's really simplified my evening, and it's done, I think it's done wonders for me personally. But
absolutely. That's great. And again, like that's what I love too about like the profile of these oil-based products is that like it's not just the oil. With a lot of them, like One Drop Wonder is just the oil and it's like a booster. But the other oils are very complete skincare products with the other essentials. There are potentially more than one oil in there. But like you asked Christy, when you're talking about moisturizer. So let's kind of go through the skincare routine in order again, because order kind of does actually matter when you're talking about oils, because again, we go back to that concept that an oil reinforces that barrier of your skin ultimately. So if we are using all these oils, we've just created a really great barrier. So it might keep some of the other ingredients from other products we want to use from penetrating. So when we use a cleansing oil, you can use it first. A lot of skincare routines, they say if you're using a cleansing oil, use it first, unless like Riley said, Riley uses a makeup wipe and then she uses her midnight oil. Then you do, and traditionally it's always been use your products thinnest to thickest, like the thinnest consistency to the thickest consistency. But that was in a world where they were really trying to say, go from the water-based content stuff and finish with the more oil-based content, because intuitively in the way skincare products used to be formulated, the richer, denser creams, the thicker things were the ones with the most oil. Like facial oils and skincare oils weren't really a prominent thing in the product world so much until fairly recently, actually. And so, and especially on like the scale that you can find them, there's like a billion different oils out there and oil blends and all sorts of things. So something like you cleanse your skin, and I always say go to your treatment step. So the treatment step is like, what additional challenges are you battling on your skin, or what other things do you want to treat? Do you want to do something more anti-aging? Are you trying to treat breakouts? Are you trying to treat rosacea or eczema or something like that? So something like a Sotox would be in that world of a treatment step because it has water components to it and it is more fluid. And it actually has aloe, I believe. It has apricot seed oil, which is amazing. It has lactic acid, it has hyaluronic acid. So it's actually a product that is trying to impart both moisture and that hydration component, that water component, you know, wants to hydrate, plump the skin. It's got peptides, it's got all that stuff, you know. So we'd want to do that, or any other like kind of more water-based moisturizer. Then we move to maybe something that is more oil-based. So you want to give those water-based ingredients or the things with the hyaluronic acid maybe a few minutes to absorb. And then we finish with the heavier products or the straight up oils that we can press into, or I like massaging my oil into the skin because I like stimulating my skin in that way. But I also know the appropriate way to like rub a product into the skin. A lot of people will say when you're putting oil or skincare in to just pat it in or press it in. you know, press it into the skin. I like doing a little facial massage. I don't think you're going to hurt yourself if you're like doing more than tapping, but really it's kind of that order of like, do your cleanse, get on those more like water-based ingredients, and then move to the thicker creams, or and then finish with a straight up oil on the skin. Because if you go with stuff that's so much straight up oil, you could potentially be like just reinforcing the barrier so much that anything with water in there is not going to really be able to penetrate. It's going to sit right on top of those oil like products. Because when you see something like, you know, we have the due date here, you know, that's a straight up oil versus like the Cool Balm, which is really like lightweight moisturizer, or like we have here, our skin therapy. The skin therapy has, yeah, it has really great oils in there, but it also has those water-based ingredients. And so, and it has hyaluronic acid in there, and it is meant to hydrate. If I put it, and I'm gonna see if I can, if it reads like this. So I have it in one spot on my hand where I rubbed it in with no oil. Now I'm gonna put it on top where I have the oil. So this is it like absorbing into my skin. If I try and rub it in on top of that oil, it will blend with that, but it's going to take so much longer to actually get into the skin that those water components are going to start evaporating and stuff before they actually have an opportunity to try and get into those deeper layers of my skin. It's literally going to sit right on top of that oil and be like, great, now I'm just hanging out. Cool. Thanks for inviting me to the party. So it's just kind of that thought process. And it always kind of goes back to like, oils help balance the skin. They help make our cells stronger, but they really help reinforce ultimately why our skin produces oil and why we want to integrate them is make our barrier stronger, help keep the bad stuff out and keep that good stuff in our skin. And I do like going back to that, the magnet analogy, because our skin actually has no, like, you know, when you have a magnet and it sticks to stuff great, and then you stick it to something and it falls off because it's not magnetized. There's no polarity to it. Oil is actually non-polar. It has no polarity. But in the world of skincare, that's why it absorbs. And water-based ingredients actually do have a polarity to them. And so it's kind of nerdy, sciencey stuff, but I love it. But it makes a really big difference. Then that's what, when you think about like oil likes oil, water likes water, when we do the water first and then we put the oil on and sandwich it, it will help drive those really great, you know, water components, hydrating components more deeply into the skin and pull more nutrients in deeper too. So one of the reasons I love Due Date is because it's a sunflower seed base. Sunflower seed oil is really anti-inflammatory, really rich in vitamins C and E in particular. And here's like kind of towards the end of this, one of the reasons why it's important to make smart choices with the oils that you use. So we talked about rosehip seed oil. I love rosehip seed oil. Due Date has rosehip seed oil in it. So does so does Midnight Oil. Midnight Oil actually has rosehip seed oil in it, and I love it. Rosehip seed is super, it has like one of the highest concentrations of vitamin C, and I think vitamin A that's not like produced in a lab, you know, like really from a natural product. Marula is the same way. Marula is super high in vitamin C. And we can get really strong concentrations of things that our skin needs, you know, things that you find in all these serums. I get questions about vitamin C all the time. Like these oils that we have, that we utilize are really very high in vitamin C. And I feel like our skin gets such a great amount of vitamin C from these oils, you know, and, but rosehip seed oil is effective in a concentration of like as low as 5%. And once you've hit 25%, you're kind of capping out at what it can do. So if you're using like pure rosehip seed oil, you're missing out on because your skin can only take so much product, you know, we can only so much can absorb, or like we're going to use too much and then we're going to turn into like crazy town. So kind of the reason I'm stating that is when you have an oil in a mixture, and why I love a good facial oil, like really when you look at the ingredients of something like a due date and the profile of it and what's in there for the price, like it's crazy what is in this bottle and how low of a price it is. Like this is, and everyone can use it, but it's got rose and rosehip seed and that palmarosa and helichrysum and schizandra. So it's got this mix of seed oils and essentials. But like when I have people that are like, oh, all I use is rosehip seed oil. I'm like, yeah, I love rosehip seed oil. It's one of my favorite ingredients, but you're really missing an opportunity to get the benefit of a more complete routine on your face. Like One Drop Wonder. One Drop Wonder is a booster, and you really do need like a drop or two generally. If this was like all someone were using on their skin and tried to get like a full, like their whole face covered, so it's like all oiled up with it, I wouldn't say that would be bad. It's a great product. However, you're capping out on what it can do probably, and you're missing the opportunity to get the benefits of other skincare ingredients. You know, like the Midnight Oil has that marula, and it has rosehip seed, and it has camellia in it, which is a phenomenal ingredient. You know, it's got all these things that, like, you know, it's like a puzzle. So you're getting all of those components you need from all of those different things. And that's where a lot of people miss out when they just go buy like a bottle of straight up marula. If I tried to use like straight up marula oil on my face, it would be too heavy. It would be too much because it has more of those like richer omegas. And for my skin type, it would be too much, but I'd also be missing out on the opportunity to get the benefits of the other ingredients and the other oils and essential oils in there that make it an actual complete skincare product. So like to Janie's point, when she's like, I use the Midnight Oil, and like Riley said too, like the cleanser with the Midnight Oil serum is so great for me because they're actually a complete skincare product. You know, they have multiple ingredients in there with like a blend of oils and essential oils. So we're really hitting all of those puzzle pieces. So we're getting everything that we need versus just like using one thing. You know, our skin can only use so much of what's in there, and we cap out on the benefit of it, you know? So it's like, I wouldn't say someone using only rosehip seed oil will be bad. It's a great product, but they don't need that much. They can actually get that full benefit in way less and be able to get the benefits of other ingredients too.
Yeah, I usually do the iorize, the One Drop Wonder on this issue, you know, right here, let that sit a little bit and then do skin therapy or Sotox is what I usually do.
Yep. And that's
But
perfect.
I find that the Midnight Oil, I'll clean it with the Midnight Cleanser, and I think it does really well at taking everything off my skin, but then it just leaves me feeling too oily, and so I usually follow it up with Dream Clean. So
if that would be how it would be for me. If I only use Midnight Oil because of my skin type, it would be too much if that were all I used. But I know some people will even like mix. Like I had someone on my post earlier today, like oils are really great to integrate into other things. So I've put some Midnight Oil in my Quench Cleanse before. Like when it's peak winter and my skin feels really dry, I've mixed those two together. So I'll do my Dream Clean and like mix those two. I will tell people, if your skin's feeling really dry, mix some Due Date in your 40 Cure cream. Because again, 40 Cure cream is a cream. It's got that tamanu oil in there, super anti-inflammatory. It's got lots of different essentials that are healing on the skin, antibacterial. That's why the 40 Cure cream is magic on eczema, and it's amazing for babies. Like if anyone has a baby, like you need 40 Cure cream for sure. But you can also mix oils and you can bolster the oil content of that. And it's phenomenal, you know, if you need something that is a little more rich. And so that's possible too. I know some people that will just, put a couple drops of One Drop Wonder or Due Date in their skin therapy. You know, there's a lot of different ways to do it. The purist, the skincare purist would say, layer your ingredients and give them time to absorb. You know, you layer your water, you give it some skincare ingredients, like if you're using like a retinoid, they'll be like, put it on totally dry skin, let it sit for 15 to 30 minutes. And I'm like, that's cute. I live in the real world. That's not going to happen. So it's just kind of that balance of like, yeah. So the difference between due date and due confidence. So due date, they have a different base oil and they just have different ingredients. So hazelnut is an astringent oil, and that's why it's really great for the body. People who have even like eczema or breakout issues on their body, hazelnut can be an amazing oil for them. And hazelnut's been actually like clinically proven to improve the collagen and elastin in our skin. So that's why people see dramatic results with things like stretch marks and discoloration and stuff like that. They're just different oils that do different things, you know? And there are some people that use the Dew Confidence on their face even, because the profile of what's in there works great. So again, it's like, they're just, if you went through and like pulled up like the profile of not just like the fatty acids in there, because that's part of it, but also like the minerals, like iron, zinc, calcium, selenium, magnesium, you know, they all, it's like food, you know, there's a different profile to skincare stuff. The same thing as like food, you know, it's pretty cool. And so our skin just gets different benefits from it, and it impacts it in a different way. But I love that generally oils will be consistently, and the ones you find in skincare products, phenomenally anti-inflammatory. And so they can be very soothing on the skin. And generally they will be, a lot of essentials are very antibacterial. And so overall, like, they will give your skin a lot of what you need. And I feel like Limelife has done they're really smart. Like, as someone who studies skincare products and ingredients, I'm actually like, knowing what I know, I kind of am like, if people knew what I knew, they would buy up all of this stuff and never want to use anything else, because just what is in there. And the sourcing makes a big difference. Like the way we source, you know, it's like the quality and how it's put together. They are very complete products. So you don't need 9 million things. You know, it fits into your life and you can use a few things, and just figure out the combination that works individually for you, you know. But I will say that I've had the biggest change in my skin when I just started adding due date in before anything else. Something as simple as due date, and a little bit at a time. That's one mistake.
And I have people tell me a lot, they're too pricey for me. They're too pricey for me. The first thing I say is, this is not something I have to order every single month. This is, you know, this isn't every month I have to order every one of these products,
Well,
you know,
and
because I use
great point.
some at different times, and, you know, they last longer than a month. So,
well, and something like a facial oil in particular, face oils last a very, very, very long time, because you need such a small amount of an actual oil, really, in comparison to like cleanser or moisturizer. And generally people use like too much stuff. It's like, you can even do little bits and just see how it absorbs on the skin. But face oils in particular, we need like a couple drops sometimes. And when you haven't used it before, when you're just starting to integrate that type of product in, like when people just start using something like a due date and they're maybe concerned with like, oh, I'm oily or I'm this, it's like, you literally use a drop or two and press it on the skin and start from the outside in. Start where you're less oily and then work into there. And then you build it up. In reality, a product like a straight up oil should last a very long time. One thing I will add for the people that are only using oils and not using a moisturizer is just make sure that you're aware of how hydrated your skin is, because an oil will moisturize the skin, will help reinforce the barrier, will help keep moisture from leaving the skin, but it will not impart any hydration content to the skin. So I'm always hesitant when I hear people only use oils. if they're not using anything, at least intermittently, that they're just ensuring that they are also making sure that they're managing the water content to the skin too. But I feel like they do last forever. And I saw something about One Drop Wonder. So here's something specific about One Drop Wonder that not a lot of people know. One Drop Wonder, you know, comes from those hedge balls, and it's Maclura pomifera, and they smell weird. And they're actually used as like people like buy them and put them around their house to like keep spiders away. Like they smell funny. And we pay, one of the reasons why our cost is a little different than maybe other places that you can track it down is that we go through a very specific and advanced cold press process with that, because the more refined it is and the more pure it is, the less it smells weird. And so that's why other people will maybe add different essentials to it or different things to manage the smell. But that's a great point. Like different seed oils smell differently. You know, like coconut oil has a super strong smell when it's like in its pure form, you know, like vegetable oils have a really strong smell to them. And so that's why sometimes people will just, or companies will put different essentials in there just sometimes to manage the smell, not for like a skincare benefit, just because they can smell funny. But that's a really great point with oils too, is that ultimately also it's super important to pay attention to how long you've had something, because some stuff can last so flippin' long with this that making sure it hasn't sat for too long is important, because when something is a really powerful antioxidant, and when you're not using all of these crazy town preservatives that aren't good for us, they will spoil eventually. Oils will spoil. And so, and everyone who's ever cooked anything knows what an oil smells like when it's gone off. And when something has gone off, you do not want to put it on your skin. When something has gone rancid, you do not want to use it on your skin. So that's the thing. I was like, I'm more concerned with people's products lasting too long, because these products last forever, that I'm like, you got to throw that away because you don't want to be using that on your face. So that's kind of a great way to sum up too, is that when it comes to any either straight up skincare oils or oil rich products. So it's like you have the oils, but then you also have like moisturizers that have the oil components. When it changes texture, when it changes color significantly, and when it changes smell, you definitely need to say it's time to be done with it, which is why I'm so like, it's like use your skincare. Skincare's use it or lose it, because powerful skincare ingredients that do something eventually will go bad, you know, and our little skincare fridges can be great for that. And where we store them, you definitely don't, I would say, Marla, and it says on all of our bottles, so everything that we have is good 2 years from manufacture. Our due date actually has a shelf life once you open it of 12 months. One Drop Wonder is 6. Yeah, skin therapy is 12 months. So it just depends, but also some of it comes down to like how you store it. If you're keeping your stuff in the bathroom and it's getting hot constantly and getting like wonk, you know, like temperature fluctuations are bad for your skincare. Light. There's a reason why a lot of skincare products will be in darker or opaque packaging to keep light from being able to get to it. Light and UV will oxidize your product. And you know, oxidation bad. Well, we like antioxidants. We want them to like prevent oxidation on our face. Like we don't want it to oxidize in the package. It's gonna happen somewhere. So there are some ingredients that they'll only sell in like amber packaging or opaque packaging. And so those are things to just be aware of also, because when something's gone, they'll say it's gone off, you know, it's gone off. It gets all weird. And if anyone's ever gotten a One Drop Wonder that they feel smells really strongly when you get it, or it changes really quickly, just call customer care and they'll get you a new one. And that's honestly, in skincare, one of the biggest challenges are some of the most potent ingredients are very unstable.
Well, I was wondering, because I have a customer, she's new and she just ordered the Midnight oil cleanser, and she said, I'm using it, but I really don't like the smell. And I said, that's funny, because I really like the marula oil smell. So I'm like, does that mean that maybe she's gotten a bad bottle?
I wouldn't say, like with midnight oil is very aromatic. So I wouldn't worry about something like the midnight oil being like spoiled. It's just really aromatic. And it actually took me like a couple weeks to adjust to it, where I was like, oh, that's potent. And now I'm like obsessed with it.
I know,
But
I
people,
like it. So that's why I said, well, everyone's different. So
people are super sensitive to smells. It is a thing. I've had people, and here's what's funny. I don't think skin therapy has a smell at all. I think it has no smell whatsoever. And I've met like a couple people that felt like skin therapy, they loved it. But they were like, there's something really weird about the smell. But I've also met people that like, I love the smell of lavender. And I have met, it's like, you know how some people can't, like cilantro tastes like soap to them? It's the same thing. There are some people that like lavender is their cilantro. And everyone's like, lavender's so calming. And then there's like, and they're tracing it to actual genetic components. They found a genetic component for people who think cilantro tastes like soap. And there's a lot of that stuff with smells too, where there's like floral scents just hit different for some people. And those essential smells. So I wouldn't worry about, yeah, I think the midnight oil is definitely our most aromatic product, but that is just the composition of the different essentials in there. Typically seed oils will have a specific smell, but they're not really strong smelling. The essentials are what are going to impart a more like stronger smell to our skincare, typically. But if something smells like, but that's the thing, like you're using your skincare on your face, you know, and it can smell a lot, but I don't think it lasts. That's the thing with, and I had one person that when they started using it, they were like, I feel like it's really strong, but it's just initial. And then you don't smell it at all. Because there are some things that they will sit on the face and you will keep smelling them. And that's another thing. Like I've never had that experience with our skincare ever. But
Rindy, I'm interested to know what you're making because watching you make dinner is making me hungry.
He's making chicken and mushrooms and twice baked potatoes.
No, I made steak.
I was gonna say, I thought I saw.
That's so funny. I was wondering. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna pull up my camera.
Rindy.
All right, hang on. All right, I made steak.
Oh, steak.
I made sautéed mushrooms with garlic, and then I'm broiling my twice baked potatoes.
Okay,
and it's just about ready. So you guys can head on over.
I was gonna say I'm coming to your house for dinner.
Yeah, it's about ready. That's perfect timing.
Well, Stephanie, this was amazing. I really appreciate all the information. It was awesome.
Yay, I'm so glad. This is a topic where there's just so many things that can be covered, and I never want to like just dump a ton of information on everyone. But it's, especially in the world of skincare, there's like, yeah, there's the whole trend component to stuff, and skin oils are really an important part of the conversation that's happening right now. But also like this time of year, like this is like the ideal time if someone wants to integrate something like that in. It's also where we're like mid kind of winter where people's skin's really at peak, dried out and dehydrated. You know, like it's losing that water component. So you need to balance it out, making sure you're using the right oils. So that's one thing I would say too, like this is such an ideal time for people to start trying to integrate like a skin oil in. But I always try not to do too much. I was actually just pulling up the ingredient list for midnight oil. A couple of things that I think make it smell so intensely too. I really do think a lot of it is like you have geranium, you have neroli. I always forget it has turmeric in there. Turmeric is like a phenomenal skincare ingredient. It has palmarosa, and it has lavender. So it has like a pretty aromatic blend of essentials, but they're like great. I forget it has millet seed in there too. That's a great ingredient also. I freaking love these products.
What else has millet seed? Is it skin therapy? No.
And quench cleanse, I believe. Like, let's pull it up. Let's use our search function really quickly and see. Sotox. I thought a Quench Cleanse had millet seed in there. A good ingredient. Sotox has way more stuff in it than people realize. And Sotox actually has way more stuff in there than I realize all the time. And that one of the reasons why I do love it, and I know we're over a little bit, but Sotox, especially if someone really is, like we talked about, really only using like some oils and they're not using a lot, Sotox is a really good product to integrate in because it has so many great ingredients and it is like a really, it's lightweight. So it's not another thing that you're going to put on that's going to be really heavy. And it does focus on like nourishing and hydrating, but it also targets so many skin concerns that one, if someone wants to keep it really simple and they're using all these oils, Sotox is such a great product to integrate in because it does all that and it's not heavy. And that's where you have to be careful when people are trying to integrate an oil in when they're using some other stuff that's already really rich, and it can feel, that's when stuff can start feeling a little heavy on the skin. So that's a product that I really think is a great integration with any type of oil. And that's why like the Sotox One Drop Wonder is a really powerful combo because you have that serum and then that does moisturize and hydrate, and then a booster oil that just kicks it up another notch.
I love learning about this. I think it's all fascinating.
And again, like it's something that you could get. I love getting into the nitty gritty details. I love it. I live for it. And it's interesting because it's interesting for me. You know, it piques my curiosity. But really, it can go so much back to the basics of like oils help reinforce our skin barrier. They help our skin perform its functions that it's intended to do better. So when you find the right oils for your skin type and skin concerns, your skin is just going to be stronger and it's going to be healthier and it's going to be able to function at its highest level possible. And that is really powerful. So when we go back to, again, what's their skin type and what is someone's skin concern? And then what specific ingredients are going to help treat those and work with those, and then how can we help the skin be at its absolute best possible? And it can just take a couple drops. Again, like it doesn't have to be like piles of oil that people think. Like start with just a couple drops and it can make a really big difference. A couple drops in the skincare you have, a couple drops to finish at the end of everything. Either way can make a really, really big difference. And it doesn't have to be like a complicated conversation. Happy anniversary, Marla. I know you got to go. And we're going to wrap up too, but
Thank you. Good night, Carols.
And I'll make sure I get this up on our channel and it'll be shareable. And it's a great conversation to just revisit and always ask me questions. Oh. And I do love that the website does have stuff broken down really easily too. So stuff does get broken down really easily on the website. Okay. Thanks for coming and hanging out and asking great questions too. These are some really, really, you always ask such great questions. So
this is good information. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You are so welcome. I love it.